DC Boxing Legend Podcast. 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 Home of the champions.
Welcome to DC Boxing Legends Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have one of the greatest fighters to ever come out of Washington, D.C., ladies and gentlemen. We have, it's only a few that you can put in the category of thousands of fighters that came out of our city. And that is becoming an accomplishment of becoming a world champion. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the two-time middleweight champion of the world, the legendary Keith Holmes. How's it going, brother?
All is well. All is well. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's an honor to have you on, man. I remember growing up, man, and it was in watching you guys at the fights back in the old days at different gyms and different coliseums and like the convention centers and places of that nature, and kind of motivated us and gave us the inspiration to keep pushing, man. The question I want to ask you first is, when did you start boxing?
You say when?
Yes.
I was about 6 years old when I started boxing. And that's when I first walked into the gym.
Okay. Which gym did you start fighting out of first?
I was living with my mom in Southeast, but I started in Kenilworth because my grandmother lived in Paradise, Northeast. So Kenilworth Boxing, Recreational Center was where I first started under the coach, Kenny Mallett.
Okay.
He's my first boxing coach.
Okay, I remember Kenny, man. Kenny was a great coach and trainer, man, back in the days, man. So how was that relationship for you training with Kenny and going? I'm sure you've been to plenty tournaments and fights because Kenny loved to fight, take people to get matches back in the, I remember from the 90s. I'm sure your time was probably with the 80s.
Yeah, I was with him, it was the 70s.
The 70s, okay.
Years old. Yeah, so around 75, 76, I first walked into the gym, and then my relationship grew with him in a strange way. It was like, I stayed and I played a lot, and once he named all his fighters, he gave all his fighters nicknames, and I played so much and always got in trouble. So he used to call me Yo-Yo because he said I wasn't rap too tight. So he started calling me Yo-Yo. And he would hit me on the head with a ruler or something. Like, what are you doing, boy? And like pop. And there's no bird.
Okay.
What I mean? But, yeah. So that's the relationship grew, and he was the best. Man. He was the best amateur coach that I was around.
Yeah. I remember those nicknames. He did have nicknames for all the fighters back in the day. The guys that came in they had some tight, he would give you some nice tight names. Like it was dude used to be Brave Star, and I think y'all got had Star Child. Was Star Child with y'all too?
Yeah. That was nice.
Yeah. They had some. Kenny definitely had some nice names though for his fighters though, man.
Yeah.
Give me some memorable moments of that amateur career, man. Especially when who was one of your greatest local rivalries?
And when I was with Kenny, I didn't have any rivals. All the other guys had rival fights. I didn't have any. Okay. Because I was young, but they have been here longer than I have been. So I didn't have any rivals. I had rivals. I think they grew later when I got older. But at that time, the greatest moments were Ohio State Fair. Those type of tournaments, like when we went out of town, like Norfolk, Virginia for the bronze. I won the bronze medal, and Norfolk. So those were the memorable times with Kenny.
Okay.
Traveling, stuff like that. And also him taking us to McDonald's after we worked out some days.
Okay.
He treated us like we were his kids.
So what was it, how do you think the impact that boxing played in your life? Did it play a major impact in your life today and back then as well?
Oh no, it played a very important impact. It was an impact in my life then and now because I have a book coming out, so I have to be careful how I answer this.
I got you.
By the grace of the Most High, man, I was able to hold on to the boxing career even through all the things that I went through, and I believe that. If the boxing wasn't there, I don't know what God would have done with me at that time. And it was an intricate part in me, in my life at that time, especially in the 90s. But I had to hold on to it. I had to fight through pickup rides and bushes and fire, before I was able to achieve just to get me where I needed to be. And it took, the fortitude to be, to hold on to all of that stuff. It was real dark for me growing up.
So, as you got older and you decided to go into the professional ranks, did you already see yourself as becoming a future world champion, or was it just something that you just, you grew into over time?
I never, to be totally honest, I never focused on being a world champion. I always focused on winning.
I got you.
And I knew that as long as I won, at some point, that would be one of the trophies, I guess. My mom used to tell people that I was going to be just like Sugar Ray Leonard. I was probably like 7 years old, 6 or 7 years old. And she was saying that I was agreeing with it, but I didn't really know what I was agreeing to.
Right.
I just know that everybody liked them, and so from that point on, I just, wanted to always win. And I promised to work hard. And that's in those times.
Man, everybody that I've talked to that sparred you, and they say you one of the hardest punchers that they ever dealt with, man. Where does that come from, man?
I watched a lot of fights, older fighters back in the day and these fighters knew how to turn their knuckles over. They knew how to throw from the shoulders, and a good friend of mine named Tony Fortune, he was killed. Yeah. He taught me a lot when I was young, how to place myself in to get those shots in. So it's always like, even a lot of my street fights, they were like knockouts. And I was really, really small guy growing up, and I was knocking out adult grown men. And it was because of how I learned how to turn my punches over. And even right now today, man, I just still have it. I still feel strong. As long as I know how to turn my knuckles over to incorporate my shoulder and my body into it, you'll always have that punching power.
Wow. So, when you, I remember when you fought and lost in France, but later came back and brought the title back to DC and retained it and got it back, man. How was that experience for you getting the title back in DC?
Oh, it was a great thing. I did something I said I would never do when I went to France. And I brought in a coach. Well, maybe I should have, maybe I shouldn't have. But I brought in a coach that had a lot of experience, and he's supposed to knew about, if we went to another country, how long we need to be there to get acclimated, the time span and stuff like that. And people being over in France about 4 to 5 days, and then going into a fight was really, really detrimental to me, because we was on different times. It's like it was like 3 o'clock in the morning here, like 10 o'clock there.
Yeah.
And so when I fought, I was in the dressing room sleep when they told me to glove up, and I hadn't even wrapped up yet.
Wow.
So I came out of the dressing room just waking up, man.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why I was able to. But one thing I did, even in the fight, I studied him. I knew, even though I felt like I won the fight, but they had a right to take it, you know, because I was in his hometown.
Mm-hmm.
But I told them that I was going to stop him in the rematch. And because I learned them, I knew a lot about it. You know, so that was a great experience for me. And you know, I became the 16th middleweight in history to retain the title back from the person he lost it to.
Wow, that's amazing. That's history. That's in the history books, in the record books.
Right.
So would you now? That's a great question. Great lesson that can be taught to the future champions out here. So, how long do you think a fighter should take when they travel away for such a distance to get acclimated to the time frame and the weather and so forth? What would you recommend a time for a fighter to prepare for such situation?
Well, that's a good question. Because I've been through that experience, and I did it twice, and it worked for me. Understanding like 5 days is not enough time. Now, I'm not saying you can't win the fight, but you know it'll be tough for you if you got a tough opponent to be in a country that's 10 hours or 7 hours behind you or ahead of you. To be over in that country, I advise people to go at least 21 to 30 days. 21 or more days in that country, because then I did a title fight inside of England, which was basically on the same time span, and I went over there for almost a month. And it was just like I lived there like he lived there. So there was nothing wrong with me going into the Robert McCracken fight.
That's right.
So I lived it and I learned from it. You know, if I would have did it the same way, I would have been a fool, man.
Right. You already learned from the mistakes and you corrected it. So this is one of the questions I had to ask too, man. You guys participated in one, and I think one of the most put together boxing tournaments for professionals. I mean, all world champions fighting to see who's the top person. How was that experience? It was amongst you, William Joppy, Tito, Felix Trinidad, and Bernard Hopkins. How was that experience to be? The limelight was on you guys, because I remember that time frame. It was just on y'all at that time who was going to come out on top. How was that feeling to be amongst the top 4 and the best fighters in the world as far as middleweight? How was that for you, experience?
Man, I really, really appreciate it being in that situation, man, at that time with those great fighters. All of those fighters, Joppy, Trinidad, Bernard, were great fighters, and I was in the midst of it from where I come from, and all the things I did. I had to go through before I got there. Allowed me to appreciate being on that stage with them guys, and for a person like, I don't know if you remember Burt Sugar.
Mm-hmm. I remember Burt Sugar. Yeah,
one of the greatest boxing analysts, and he had me, him and Roy Jones and all them guys had me winning the tournament.
Wow.
But one thing I learned, sometimes, you can go into a situation not being yourself,
right? And
you feel like you can't pull out of the situation because it's too deep and too big and whatever. And that's one mistake that I made.
Right.
Going into that fight, it wasn't really prepared. I had a lot on my mind, and to be honest, my book is going to tell the story. Like all the stuff that I've been through, it was like I was going through it again, but not in the same manner. But it's this obstacle after obstacles, and it's just like me having a problem with the promoter, with Don King, and we argued 2 days before the fight. It just messed my focus up.
Right.
And that was a fight that I did not deserve to win, because I wasn't put together like I was put together in other fights prior to that.
Right.
I trained harder for Andrew Council, for Robert McCracken, for Ricky Will, for Paul Vaden. I train harder for those guys than I train for one of the guys that they considered the best. And these other two fighters, Javi and Trinidad, that I would have had to face. So it was a great experience for me, but that was one of the worst times of my career. The worst time of my career is the tournament. That's it.
When I watched that fight, I knew something was off with you, from what I saw in your previous fights. I said, for some reason, something's off with Keith, man. You can tell, because as a fighter, a former fighter myself, you can tell when a fighter is not mentally there and something's beyond boxing is causing this, and it was definitely noticeable, you know what I'm saying? It just, a lot of these people that's like critics or that really not boxers really don't understand when a fighter's not totally there from something outside of boxing. It takes a fighter to understand such things, So I knew, from the jump, I say, trust me, Keith would have been on him on this. When shots was open, I was like, something's off. So it's something beyond boxing. I truly knew that back then. So, but man, you still was able to be amongst the best, man, and represent the city on another level, man. And I truly appreciate you, man. Let's talk about the lifestyle, because every time I used to see you back in the days, man, that was a big thing for you. Was about being a vegan and being the first vegan world champion. What got you into that process of becoming a vegan, and what made you want to be a vegan, and why?
Like I said before, I think everything was mapped out by the Most High. And every position that I was put in, it seemed like when I look at it now, it was done by a miracle. Because, at one point, I wasn't supposed to be at a certain situation, then I ended up, in another situation I wasn't supposed to be, and I ended up, it's like you're loved by someone, but then in the midst of that someone, you're hated. And that may hinder you from moving forward with that person. But later on, you find out that the person was the person that was supposed to be put in your life, end up taking you to a heavenly place on earth, And that's what happened in my life. Everything was set up for me. And the lifestyle that I was living didn't coincide with that path. And a lot of things happened, so my career started to dwindle because and you can blind yourself. Right. You can blind yourself to the point where you can't really see. And so you allow people to make decisions for you. Like, even when that's going over to France situation. Right. Even when I knew I should have went, but then I was advised, now if you go there, you won't miss a beat. You won't miss a beat. That was a lie. Right. So a lot of things blind, smoke screens and all that stuff. And, when you have the opportunity to do it all over again, and you smart enough, you won't do it the same way. I was fixing stuff that wasn't broke. Right, that wasn't broke. And that's what I regret. I understand that totally. Let's talk about this book, man. What's the name of your book, man? And where can people get the book from? Oh, okay. The Dark Path of a Champion, on the Keith Holmes story. And I'll be posting soon about the release date, but it's coming really soon. Okay. But the book, I advise everyone to get the book, but try not to criticize the situation, because it was... I became a product of my environment, but at the same time, I want people to see how your situation that you involve in could cause you to be just like that situation. And you will see how my life changed when I was in certain situations, how I was molded to one place. And then once I moved to another place, I was molded to that place. Wow. And that actually happens to a person in life. So this book is very, very dark. It's a lot of suicides. A lot of people were killed. So, you know, and I was in the midst of all of that. So it'll be out. I'll be posting the date of the drop of the book probably in the next few days.
What motivated you to want to do the book? Is because of your lifestyle? You wanted to did you make a change with the youth, or you just wanted to tell a story? I'm just wanting to know what would the audience know? What is your motivation for putting the book together?
I didn't. At first I wasn't, but you got people that's asking questions about what happened. Like when me and Andrew counseled for it the first time in 1994, something happened before the fight. You know, a couple of days before the fight, and people want to know what happened at that time. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of people want to know what happened prior, like when I was young. How did that happen? You know, with certain people, and you know, so I get those questions all the time, and then it's more of a part of my like motivational speaking of how I went through so much and I never quit. I had so much faith in everything that I did, and I never quit. And if your life wasn't as hectic as mine was, you should never quit. There should be a man on this earth that should quit after reading this book. You know, so I hopefully a person to take it to heart, to understand that you could be what you will to be. You're gonna be told that you ain't gonna be nothing, or this and that. But you have to be the one to determine that in your life.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
And that's why I decided to write the book.
Man, I look forward to when the book come out. I'm gonna make sure I get me a copy, man, and put it out there as much as possible. I'm gonna flood it on the DC Boxing Legends page, as because I think you know I'm from the area where you from as well. You know, I grew up in that old area. I'm from Minnesota Avenue. So, you know, okay. I know the stories and heard some of the stories, you know, that was shared. And I would look forward to hear it come from you, to hear the actual story being told from yourself. So I definitely look forward to the book, but I still always had a respect for you, you know what I'm saying? Because, you know what I'm saying? Especially with the vegan lifestyle, and, you know, when you get around you always sharing your knowledge to other fighters, younger fighters, and to friends. And I mean, back then I've had a drink since 8 years, but you saw me with a drink at the fights, right? You say, man, put that down, man. Every time you saw me, you say, put that down, man. You don't destroy yourself, man. You know what I'm saying? So it was always, I've respected that about you, man. You know what I'm saying? You care. You know what I'm saying? You cared about other fighters and other people, you know? So definitely, man. What'd you say, brother?
You know, what I really want people to do is, I want to be an example. Like, I'm 53 and I'm still performing at a high level. I still can compete at a high level.
Right.
But it's because I didn't destroy my body from the inside when I was young. I never drank, never smoked. The worst thing I ate was a bunch of junk food, you know? And then I started to change those things. And, you know, this is why I'm 53 and I can run 7-8 miles. And I can hit the bag for rounds and rounds and rounds. I can spar and things of that nature. I can talk. You know, and it's because I didn't dog myself. And I want the next person to say, you know what, man, I want to be like that when I get 53. Because then when I get 73, I want to be doing the same thing.
That's right.
I believe the more you work out, the younger you get.
That's a fact. That's a fact. And plus the way you're eating, you know what I'm saying? The last time I spoke to you, I was telling you that I did the raw vegan. I'm back on it now.
Yeah.
I'm back raw vegan now. And I started in January. I did a 30-day juice cleanse. Now I'm just doing strictly raw vegan now. So I feel great again, man. Yeah, man, I'm gonna stick with it this time. My promise was to do the whole entire 2022 of doing the raw. Last time I did 263 days. This time I'm going for the full-fledged. Then I'm gonna make it a lifestyle all the way through. Once I make it through the whole year.
You doing the lifestyle better than me. I never did that long in Raw, you know. So, but that's the best lifestyle you can have, man. So congratulations, man, to know that you are now going to motivate me. See, if I did motivated you, by the grace of God, now you motivate me.
I appreciate it, brother. It's a recycle.
I understand the Raw.
Yes, indeed. It's a revolving cycle, you know. That's how it works, man. That's the beauty of it, man. But I thank you for motivating me, because, man, I remember when that drink was in my hand, you'd be like, brother, come on, man. Don't destroy your body, man. Don't destroy your body. And I appreciate that, man. You know, I definitely appreciate it. So, what's your plans, man? After the book, are you going to go around doing the tour, or you just going to? I can't wait to get it on the website or whatever, to give the link out to the people, man, and share that, man. What is your what advice do you have for the youth?
Yeah, just basically, it's work hard, man, and have faith that you can achieve, and don't never let no one change your belief and what you can be in your life.
Right.
But you still have to put forth the work. You know, it's not a real short story. It's a story that you have to really understand what you want your life to be. You know, and that's how you're going to achieve in life. And because you are your business, and whatever business you in, you represent you.
That's right.
And your business represents you. You know, you're representing your business. So if you out here playing around in the boxing world, you're going to be described as that later on in life, and you're going to wish you. You know, as people be talking today, and like, man, I used to box, I had a chance to do this, man. Those stories are great to hear, but you get tired of hearing.
Yeah, you do.
You know, and I don't want the youngest that's coming after me to be saying that. It takes the opportunity while it's at hand.
Exactly.
You know, when I was number one in the world to fight Curry Norris at one time, and when I was called for a world championship fight, it was at middleweight, and I was junior middleweight. I had to go up to like 3 or 4 pounds, man, to fight that fight, but I had to be ready.
Exactly.
But if I wasn't ready, mentally, physically, spiritually, I wouldn't have took that fight. You know, and it probably would never have come back.
Right, exactly. You was, like they say, man, when the opportunity knocks, better have your bags packed.
Exactly. And that's the truth.
Yeah, and I mean,
truth.
And that's what I tell people. That's the mission. You know, your mission is to become. I mean, the overall job as a fighter, we all want to be world champions, man, and you definitely completed that mission. You know what I'm saying? And that's what a boxer, when you put on a pair of boxing gloves, I want to be a world champ. You completed the mission. I mean, I won nationals, and I can imagine what that feeling was to win the world title, man. I know that was like one of the greatest feelings in the world.
Right.
Can you explain that feeling when you won it? When you won the title, how was that feeling for you?
Man, let me tell you something. It took about 2 to 3 years, and one of the coaches to tell me, you know, because in the ring it was just to me it was just another win,
right?
With a trophy with it, right? And I knew that it was a little easier to get, but it's gonna be hard to hold it. So you ain't focused,
right?
So you know, a lot of people coming at you now. So I knew that I was target. So I just humbled myself. And one day, probably like 2-3 years later, one of the coaches looked at me and he just turned at me. And he was like, man, you don't know what you did. And you became a world champion. I was like, that's when it really hit me. That I fulfilled a dream that my mom had when she said I was going to be just like Sugar Leonard. But not like him, but I ended up winning one of the belts he held in life. You know, so you know that when a person speaks that way of you never know what could come out with what they're saying. It may not be exactly what you think it's going to be. So at that time, man, it was just, oh man, I won the world title, and now I got to make sure I keep it. And so I'm a target now. So it's a great pleasure. But I felt it later.
Yeah. Man, I remember seeing you, man. I think you was living on C Street, if I'm not mistaken, on Southeast. And you would ride by with the Hummer. I think you had a black Hummer, man. I used to be like, it used to blow my mind because you was like, that's a world champion, man, riding up in that's Keith Holmes in the black Hummer. I will never forget it, man. It was like you was larger than life coming through there, man. Every day you came through there.
Yeah, somebody lived there.
Okay.
And my aunt lived on the back.
Okay.
She lived on the back street.
Okay.
Yeah, so somebody else lived there.
Okay, but I just would see, it wouldn't be a regular, it'd just be a ride through, like every now and then would see you come through there, man. So, like, damn, you get that nice Hummer, man. You know what I'm saying? Especially back then, the Hummers was a big deal, you know? So,
I had two. I had the Army one.
Okay.
The H1 and the H2.
H1, H2.
The H1 is the best one.
Yeah, the H1 the best one. Everybody wanted that H1 though, man. Yes, indeed, man. So, let's plug the book in one more time before we end it, brother. What's the name of the book again? And hopefully it'll be coming soon. So what's the name of the book again?
All right, the name of the book is Dark Path of a Champion, the Keith Holmes story. And, I'll be posting on IG and Facebook under Keith Holmes World Champ on both pages, on both sites. Keith Holmes World Champ, Dark Path of a Champion.
Ladies and gentlemen, the great Keith Holmes, DC Boxing Legends Podcast.
DC Boxing Legend Podcast. DC Boxing Legend Podcast. DC Boxing Legend Podcast. DC Boxing Legend Podcast. DC Boxing Legend Podcast. DC Boxing Legend Podcast. DC Boxing Legend Podcast. DC Boxing Legend Podcast. Home of the champ.